Hello, everyone. I'm Lorrie Foster, Director of Corporate Strategy at IAVE. Welcome to today's webinar, Inspiring Practices in Skills-Based Volunteering. The premise of today's webinar is based on our recently published research report, Corporate Volunteering for a Post-Pandemic World. We found, after interviewing 80 companies, that nearly every company intends to increase the percentage of skills-based volunteering within their employee volunteer program. We have invited the leaders of two truly inspiring programs to share the details with you today. First, a few basics of our webinar. We are recording this webinar, and we ask that you remain muted for the duration of the session. There will be time for your questions, so feel free to put them in the Q&A section at any point. At the conclusion of the webinar, there will be a special discussion for members of IAVE's Global Corporate Volunteer Council. If you are a member and misplaced your link for that session, check your email or send me a quick note. Before I introduce our featured speakers, I would like to share some top-level findings from our recent research report. Let's see. We released the Corporate Volunteering for a Post-Pandemic World in mid-June. This was the result of a 2.5-year collaboration effort. In addition to my two terrific co-authors, Dr. Ken Allen, who has written much of IAVE's corporate volunteering research, we also engaged a cultural anthropologist, Monica Kroll. We worked with researchers from each region of the world, and they provided local intelligence and nuance in interviewing the companies. Before the end of this year, we will publish part 2, with essays from each region describing what makes corporate volunteering in each region unique. We also now have our corporate volunteering executive summary available in Spanish, and next month we'll have the full report available in Chinese. Next slide, please. This research was supported by a number of sponsors, and we thank them for their support. We couldn't have done it without them. Next slide. Based on the interviews with representatives not only of companies, but NGOs, academics, regional and national volunteer leaders, and others, we determined 7 overall themes that define corporate volunteering today. First is the emergence of a truly corporate volunteer community. There is a good amount of sharing we are doing today among regional, national, and global communities of practice. Secondly, we found tremendous amount of resilience during the global pandemic and lockdown. Corporate volunteer leaders responded quickly to the pandemic and to the lockdown in a number of very resourceful ways. We wrote a chapter on this in our research, and there are many examples of how corporate volunteer leaders pivoted, responded, and innovated. Thirdly, what we saw is the expansion of what we call the big tent. The big tent includes others in volunteering beyond employees. And what we saw is that now many programs include family members, retirees, customers, suppliers, and community members, creating much more interest in volunteering. We also saw a reaffirmation of the case for corporate volunteering. There is widespread acknowledgement around the world that corporate volunteering benefits communities, employees, and the company. We saw more virtual volunteering than ever before, partly because of the pandemic, but partly because of innovation. And what we see now, a few years later, is that these programs are lasting. There's a lot more virtual volunteering happening. We saw also the emergence of younger employees as a leading force for volunteering, and we saw this in every country. Nearly every company has younger employees pushing for more programs, more causes, and greater impact. Finally, what we saw was an increase in skills-based volunteering, our topic for today. Let's go to the next slide and look at our top findings on skills-based volunteering. As I said, more companies with an employee volunteer program are increasing the percentage of their skills-based volunteering program. Common program areas for skills-based volunteering include, and we're going to see this in our with our two speakers today, improving the capacity and skills of NGOs. This is a very popular use of skills-based volunteering. Also applying technology to social and environmental issues. We additionally saw educational and skill building support for youth and underserved groups. And what we also see in skills-based volunteering is an expansion of what skills-based volunteering is. It has started with the professional skills, maybe accounting, legal skills, and has expanded to marketing and other skills. But we also saw companies employing skills-based volunteering in new ways or in less understood ways, like in construction or drivers, or people using their hobbies, such as in Korea, the company POSCO had employees who were scuba divers helping to clean local waterways in Seoul. Finally, we saw that there are challenges to skills-based volunteering, and that is in quality and consistency. We talked to NGOs and we asked them what their concerns were about corporate volunteering. And one of those concerns that was expressed was that it's important, particularly with vulnerable communities, to have consistency. You can't be mentoring a child and not show up. So this is something that we need to be concerned about when we look at skills-based volunteering. Let's go to the next slide and explore why skills-based volunteering is increasing. And it's because there are so many potential benefits. So NGOs can benefit from technology, finance, strategic planning, legal, marketing skills, and other skills they don't have and likely could not otherwise afford. Employees also can recognize significant professional and personal rewards from skills-based volunteering. They're using their skills in new ways and often finding new challenges. Finally, companies can gain also as their employees come back refreshed, renewed with new skills, new networks, new customers potentially, and even a pipeline of new workers. Now let's get into the details with our guest speakers. First of all, I'd like to introduce Janet Woods, who manages the Americas region for Cognizant Outreach, which is Cognizant's employee volunteer program. Prior to Cognizant, Janet worked at Avnet, where she had global responsibility for Avnet Cares, the company's community impact program that engaged employees and empowered them to make a difference in their communities through volunteerism and also charitable giving. When Janet's not working, she is a volunteer for the Denver Museum of Nature and Sciences paleontology team. She's also a skier and hiker and is currently working on her private pilot's license. Janet, tell us about your program in skills-based volunteering.
You bet. Thank you. And hopefully my video is up. And we'll
It is.
Up. All right.
It is.
Lorrie, let me know if it starts to get compromised. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to be asked to speak about this work, and it's a privilege to be part of this community. IAVE and the Global Corporate Volunteer Council are very near and dear to me. This is the organization who many years ago not only introduced me to the phrase inspiring practices, but made it possible for me to learn from them. And I hope what I cover today are inspiring practices for you to think about. As Lorrie said, I lead Outreach, which is Cognizant's employee volunteer program in my area of responsibilities, the Americas. But today I'm just going to focus on our work in North America. For many of you, Cognizant may not be a company you're familiar with, and that's okay, because we work directly with other businesses who are our clients. And we help them modernize technology and transform their business processes and experiences so they can stay ahead in our very fast changing world. And together we are helping improve everyday life. We have more than 370,000 associates globally, which I looked up the other day is the same as the population of Iceland. In North America, we have 40,000 associates, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And we can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry. We can go to the next slide after that. Okay, great. So Outreach has been around since 2007, and it really started out as a grassroots effort in India. It's now grown to become a strategic initiative under our Chief Sustainability Officer, who leads our Environmental, Social, and Governance, or ESG team. Outreach is the S, we're the social part of ESG. And in the past few years, we've been focusing on our new strategy, which is heavily focused on skills-based volunteering. We can go to the next slide. So this new strategy, it focuses on supporting inclusion in tech, which means helping prepare underrepresented populations with skills and knowledge for tech careers, and also providing digital solutions for nonprofit organizations. And then we also have increase in community impact, and that's environmental awareness and community engagement with geographically relevant NGOs or nonprofits. How we do this is through focusing on the themes of skilling, education, and digital empowerment, as well as the passion areas of our associates. The bulk of my time, though, is focused on leveraging the strengths of our workforce and supporting inclusion in tech with skills-based volunteers. We can go to the next slide. Great. So the pandemic upended everything. We all painfully know this. However, it also provided Cognizant with a unique opportunity to really focus on our new strategy and concentrate efforts on skills-based volunteering, which happened to be some of the only volunteering opportunities available during the lockdown. This year, supporting our focus area of inclusion in tech with skills-based opportunities dominated the Cognizant events that I have created, and they now represent the majority of our total volunteer hours. What's more, when we look at the hours for our virtual group volunteer opportunities, 94% of that time is again dedicated to skills-based work aligned to our strategy of inclusion in tech. What's important to me about these numbers is that Cognizant didn't permit us to do in-person group volunteering until mid-April of this year. And we are still in a very hybrid work model with the majority of our associates continuing to work from home. And yet we're still in line with benchmark participation averages for an employee population of our size, so North America. And 94% of our unique volunteers are participating in Cognizant-led events. So both as groups and individuals, whether virtually or in person, our skills-based volunteering opportunities are really resonating with our associates. And I'll talk about that more on the next slide. I can go ahead and advance that, great. Okay, well, what's making this resonate with our associates? First, I think our associates care deeply about the idea that they can help someone find a pathway to a career in tech. And I'm sure it's relatable. They wish they had someone advocating or helping them when they first started. So it's a way to pay it forward. And the outreach strategy was developed to be aligned to our business needs. So our volunteers understand its relevance. There's a war for talent. The talent is in short supply, and our associates know this. They feel it. We are always in need of more talent, and the beneficiaries we help, they may become our future coworkers. But equally, skills-based opportunities also help our associates further develop their skills. When we provide opportunities with our tech partners like Microsoft, AWS, Salesforce, our volunteers benefit too with being able to build their skills and experience, and in some instances, earning certificates, all while helping someone else out. What keeps them returning is the volunteer experience they have with our nonprofit partners and beneficiaries. The work is impactful, it's engaging, and it's consistent. And much of that is tied to how we selectively choose the organizations to support. In North America, most of the nonprofits we work with are grant recipients from the Cognizant Foundation, who thoughtfully evaluate how potential partner organizations are identifying workforce needs and developing actionable solutions, and then how working together we can advance transformation for historically excluded communities, so those that are underrepresented, underserved, and underemployed. The foundation has focused on partners to deliver industry-relevant education, technical skills training programs, and by investing in programs that present primary, secondary, and high school students with computer science, technology, and digital curriculum. They want to expose students to jobs in the tech sector and then help them understand how to build the networks they need to secure and thrive in those roles. The idea is that we don't lack the talented people needed to fill critical roles in technology. We just have to bring them into the pipeline starting at an early age. And I'll talk about that on the next slide. A Road to Hire is a great example of a strategic partnership for us. We support their pathways, scholarship, and apprentice programs. These programs ensure under-resourced young adults have on-ramps to paid tech apprenticeships, and then hiring sustainable careers that place them on a path towards economic justice. The tech industry can unlock economic opportunity and expand equity in communities all around the world. Cognizant believes that. But it's not going to happen unless the existing pipelines into the sector and the pathways through it change, which is why we love Road to Hire. They provide these 6-month tech apprenticeships to motivated and underrepresented high school seniors, college students, and young professionals who are limited by financial barriers and systemic racism. They go through training programs for cybersecurity, coding, or business analytics, and then upon completion, these apprentices go on to work for premier employers in the Charlotte area, which is a wonderful proof point. Cognizant volunteers, we're getting ready to support our next cohort, which is going to be our 6th. I always have a wait list of volunteers wanting to participate in these opportunities. Our volunteers, myself included, serve as either a life mentor or a tech mentor. And we meet with our apprentices for an hour every week. And it's virtual, which is great because I'm in Denver and I get to support an apprentice in North Carolina. And the young gentleman who is my mentee right now is a phenomenal student, and this kid has so much potential. And I am really eager and excited to see how his future and his path develops. So life mentors, we help develop soft skills. We work on resumes, prep and practice for interviews. I mean, you name it in the professional development area, and we are helping them with it. Our tech mentors, I think of them like tutors because they're providing additional coaching and teaching on weekly tech assignments. So these volunteers must have a technical background, and they are the epitome of a skilled volunteer. We can go to the next slide. So I just talked about a specific partnership, but we have skilled volunteers working across multiple organizations and schools. It's everything from shorter term engagements like hosting mock interviews or resume reviews. We have hundreds of volunteers serving as mentors. We host a variety of boot camps and workshops, everything from soft skills development to technical or micro credentials, things like hyperscale computing, right? Something that's not offered in a semester-long college class. Okay, but what about pro bono work? So we do that too. We're even more selective on this. Part of the concern for me, to borrow a medical term, is continuity of care. When we engage in pro bono tech work, we want to be able to support ongoing needs and outcomes. So it doesn't do anyone any good if we stand up an application or a site and then for a variety of reasons can't continue to provide the support in the way we'd like to. So from a tech pro bono standpoint, I take a very cautious and conservative approach for evaluation. But there's other pro bono work of great value we are providing. Right now, I'm working with 3 different schools, higher education institutions, and leveraging the industry knowledge and the experience of our consulting group, which is a very dedicated and very specific group within Cognizant. So I mentioned earlier about hosting a boot camp on micro-credentials, around hyperscale computing and certificates. So that's not taught in a college course, but we know, and higher education institutions know, they have to modify and enhance and supplement their existing curriculum and programs. Really, they need to do that to help ensure employment and workforce success for their graduates. But they're just not 100% knowledgeable on what employers and industries are truly after, which is where our consultants come in, because they are digital and industry experts. Their capabilities go across strategy and design, technology, industry awareness, functional knowledge, industry knowledge. So who better to advise educators on how they can better prepare the future workforce, because they can specifically shed light on what's needed in the industries and in the clients that they currently serve. So it's a wonderful opportunity for them to lend that talent, and that opportunity is sustainable, it's consistent, and it's valuable both to the schools and to Cognizant. And we can go to the next slide. For Cognizant, our program perfectly aligns with who we are. We are a professional services IT consulting company. It makes sense that our people and their skills make for high value, skills-based tech volunteers. And I'm incredibly proud of the progress we have made in the past year, and it's a right fit for us. And I know there are fellow practitioners on this call who feel pressure to build up skills-based programs. I think it's really important to do a realistic evaluation of the right approach for your organization. So Lorrie mentioned that I previously had global responsibility for employee volunteering with a technology distributor. You hear the word technology and you think highly technical people, but that company was a sales and marketing organization. So we were the sales channel and logistics partner for major technology platforms and electronic components. Skills-based volunteering was not a right fit for us. Where our program was truly aligned with the value specific to the business was employee engagement. We even had 2 questions on the employee engagement survey. We were incredibly aligned from that angle, and that is what we focused on. So think about what you can do and how it aligns to your company's goals, right? And then the value that you can bring with that to both beneficiaries, but then also back to your company. Really evaluate your employee skills portfolio. What does it look like? How many people have those skills? A skills-based program won't be a strong offer if only 4 people have certain skills. And I say this next comment really, as a projection from me. Try not to compare your company or program with one in an unrelated industry or one that's not on the same size and scale, right? Focus on where you can make an impact. What is unique about your organization? That is very hard. You hear these stories of impact and you see the hype, and I understand it can sort of light a competitive fire or a hunger to be able to have programs that look like that. But, just don't compare apples and oranges. Really think about where you can make an impact, because impact measurement, it's tough. Think about how you can evaluate success or return on that time of those skills-based volunteers, right? So for me, things that I'm always thinking about are, what happens when Cognizant shows up? So if we have someone who mentors, then does a resume review, and then does an interview prep with the students. So did that candidate, did they get the job, right? What happens to them? What's the outcome? Did we make a substantial difference there, right? And that feels very qualitative, and many of you will relate to that around impact measurement, that this is tough, right? Another thing to consider for volunteering and skills-based volunteering, I think about the levels of investment for our associates, right? And how to provide accessible entry points and what skills-based progression for them might look like. So I think kind of like a pyramid, right? And laying a base foundation. So that base should be, think of it as an easy entry point with general hands-on volunteering, right? This is just sort of the entree into this world. And then a next step, or the next kind of entry point, is still meant to be easy, but more strategically aligned and moving towards skills-based. For us, and as an example, it might be a 2-hour STEM-focused workshop for middle school girls where the volunteers deliver a pre-formatted session through our partnership with Tech Girls. The work is already done for them. So this opportunity can appeal to both technical and non-technical volunteers. And then I think a step up from that, it's a different time investment, and it's an alignment with the strategy, but it can be skilling opportunities, right? So this is doing mock technical interviews, which is a very specific kind of interview. Like, I can't prep you for that. You really need someone with a tech background. So mock technical interviews, behavioral interviews, resume reviews, right? So they could even be something like facilitating a 1-hour industry insights workshop. So these are short-term, and then they are really accessible to a bigger group of volunteers. And then if we keep moving up that pyramid, you sort of up level from that, you're thinking about investing more time to volunteer. So maybe that's one-on-one mentoring, like the Road to Hire and life mentors I talked about, where, that's a 6-month commitment or more, right? Or we have a partnership with Microsoft Teals where our volunteers will support a high school teacher in a class for a year-long session based on computer science curriculum, right? So it's definitely a step up. And then if we go all the way up to the top of the pyramid, that's where I'm kind of thinking about pro bono commitments. So it says advising, consulting, tech work. It's time bound, but it's a heavier lift, and it's a specific skill set. So when I'm thinking about this pyramid, what I'm keeping in mind through all of these different entry points is that this work is not for everyone. When I think about the employee population and volunteering, I've always done this. I segment it into thirds. The way that I think about it is there's a third of the population of your employees, they already volunteer. It's in their DNA, it's who they are, it's what they're doing, they do it on their own, or they're already organizing group events, right? You don't have to convince them. These are your biggest ambassadors and advocates. Then there's, on the opposite end, there's a third who will just never be interested. They're happy you volunteer, you do you, but for whatever reason, they're just never likely to be into it. For me, I spend little to no time investing in this group. The hump to get them over, it's just too big, right? So the middle third is where I think the great potential lies. So these are folks who will show up if someone else organizes something of interest, or if you personally invite them. It's unbelievable how much a personal invitation makes a difference. Keep that in mind for anything that you are doing, whether it's general volunteering or skills-based. And then also in this group, there's people who see that everyone else is doing it and they don't want to feel left out. Okay, but the question then is, how do you get this middle third involved? again, thinking about that pyramid, right? The different entry points and how they appeal to different personality types. You have people who will be comfortable doing individual work versus ones who want to do group work. Maybe it's helping them see what's in it for them. It's the building their own skills while helping others, earning that Microsoft certificate when they're teaching a Power BI course. We actually have that happening as we speak right now. I have a couple of volunteers delivering a 4-hour workshop where they're teaching Power BI, and they have earned a Microsoft certificate, and they're very, very proudly putting that in their resume and their credential and their profile in our human resource management system. And I also think for this middle group, it's consistency. Maybe they can't support our NetHope session for Excel that we're doing this month, but they can see that it's offered every month, and then they'll try for next month, right? Or they weren't able to do the Tech Girls workshop, but they know one is coming up. So that consistency is key, and use your advocates and those ambassadors to advocate about the work, and make sure you share their stories. To me, I think it's that idea that one act can inspire another one. Highlighting the work of volunteers is really key, and recognizing them, I think, can inspire someone else. And I think for all of us in this world, we know it's the steady drumbeat of communications about your programs, the opportunities, the outcomes, and sharing them internally and externally. It is interesting sometimes to realize that your associates may be looking at the information that you publish externally more so than what you're putting out internally. And I think, at the end of the day, with all of this, volunteering should feel voluntary. I don't ever want to see corporate volunteering and skills-based, general, hands-on. I don't want to ever see it becoming mandatory in companies. It's important that this work feels authentic and not performative, and it really needs to remain meaningful and truly beneficial. So that is it for me. Thank you again to IAVE for having me. It's been a while since I've presented to the group, and so it's really great to be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Janet. Next, we're going to hear from Clementine Fischer. She is the head of ESG integration and philanthropy at AXA Group Sustainability Team. She focuses on the issue of employee upskilling on climate, volunteering, and philanthropic partnerships, among other activities. Clementine holds a master's degree in finance from the European Business School, an executive postmaster's degree in CSR and sustainable development from Mine Paris Tech. Clementine, we look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Lorrie. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having us today. It is quite refreshing to come to talk about volunteering and philanthropy and not finance or insurance. So thank you very much for the invitation. So I just wanted to start with AXA's purpose, and I will explain a little bit more what AXA is doing. But we are an insurance company, meaning that we protect properties, goods, and we also protect health of people, and we protect businesses. So we also protect cities, infrastructure. So we are a little bit everywhere, and so we needed to find a higher purpose. So we wanted to act for human progress, and we also feel deeply for many years now that we need to protect what matters and what goes beyond our clients and the people that we are insuring. So we wanted to value that within our purpose. What we started like more than a bit than 10 years ago now, is to divest from coal, because we were one of the first financial institution realizing that a world with more than 5 degrees raise in temperature was no longer insurable. So that's why we started to act for climate, and that's an engagement that we took since then. And if you move to the next slide, you will see that climate is also part of one of the key pillars of our strat plan, Driving Progress 2023, with sustain our climate leadership position, which is very important for AXA. We sustain that position as an investor, as an insurer, and as an exemplary company. So it is very important for us to focus on that for today, and we want to explain you a little bit more what we do as an exemplary company. We do things on our climate impact, of course, but we also want to act on our employees, and we want to have to make sure that everyone is aware of the climate emergency and inclusive protection as well, because it is another key area where we are acting. If we move to the next slide, it will become a little bit more clear how we pilot our strategy regarding sustainability. We made up 7 indicators that we call AXA for Progress Index, and those are indicators that we follow to make sure that we deliver upon the strategic pillar that we set up. So we have some indicators as an investor. So we want to reduce our global carbon footprint. We want to also positively invest in green investment. We have two commitments as an insurer. We commit to do green business, which is promote the adoption of responsible behaviors and also provide inclusive insurance protection to vulnerable population. And that's an area that has a connection also with our volunteering and philanthropic scheme. And as an exemplary company, we want to lead transformation by people. So we had a target to upskill all our teams on climate. And we also have a target to reduce our operational carbon footprint. A transversal indicator with the DJSI being one of the main extra financial rating agency, and they are providing us an assessment on our practices and our maturity level that is very, very broad, and that is a good asset for us to make sure that we stay ahead of all the best practices on all areas, not only on climate, not only on inclusive protection, but also on human rights or citizenship, for instance, that is part of the DJSI evaluation. If we move to the next slide, I will introduce you why we are here today is to talk about AXA Hearts in Action. That is our volunteering scheme. It is an international program with employees contributing for good, to have a positive impact on the society and on the planet. So we ask, I mean, they are very welcome to volunteer during their working hours or their free time, depending on the type of activities, depending on the country, and depending on how much they want to invest of their time. If we move to the next slide, so that program, AXA Hearts in Action, is born in France in 1991, very much inspired at the time by our CEO that has the vision that our employees needed to have a positive action to the society. So that's how it started. Now it is an international program. We have 34 entities, so it's almost 34 countries or even more. Participating in AXA Hearts in Action activities all year long. And in 2021, for example, we had 19,000 of our employees volunteering, representing a little bit more than 200,000 hours of volunteering. What we want to do with our volunteering scheme is that we want to make sure that we have something for everyone. Meaning that we wanted to keep very low involvement and low time activities, like taking a picture for November or pink October, for instance. it's low engagement, but at least it is something, and we want to keep those type of actions, and we want to go up to the very engaging skills volunteering actions, and with long-term skills volunteering within NGOs, especially in France, with up to 3 years program. That was very important for us. We also want to be broad in the type of involvement with keeping sports, not only skills-based volunteering, but we keep the traditional activities with race, for instance, pictures, of course, and also more charity like packing, solidarity kits, that type of things. For us, it is important, and we want to make sure that we have something for everyone, believing that someone that will volunteer for a very small thing one day may become a mentor, or may volunteer for and apply for a skills-based volunteering for a long time. We also wanted to have all year long activities. We have something that we call the AXA Week for Good, which is 1 week very focused and dedicated on volunteering, but we don't want it to be the only time of the year where our employees are participating. So we tend to have all year long activities and animate all year long with many different themes. Then last but not least, we want to focus on areas that are strategic for our sustainability focus. So we want to have both inclusive protection and solidarity actions that are more historically part of AXA Hearts in Action, but we want also to promote more and more activities around environmental themes. Not only because it is one of our key pillars of our strategy, but also because we have more and more employees pushing and being willing to be active for climate. And last but not lately, maybe we can just say that we want to start measuring the impact on society of what we are doing. Not only the number of beneficiaries or how many money we raised for an NGO or non-profit that we are doing today already. We really want to know how much supporting 100 or more youth and to go back to go back on track on school, or to have a better diploma than they would have without the mentoring. How much value does it bring to the society? And we can't give you any results yet, but this is where we are going, and the direction where we are going for the assessment of our program. We can move to the next slide, which is very much detailing our solidarity skills program. This is deployed in France. Why in France and not everywhere else? Because to go up to 3 years, you need to have a regulatory scheme that enables a company to do that. Otherwise, it's very difficult to dedicate 3 years of time of an employee. So that's why this is something that is deployed in France. In other countries, we have schemes with more about 1 day, 2 days, up to 1 week. But it's not as, I mean, it's much more difficult to dedicate as much time of our employees to NGOs. But still in France, we can do it, and we do it. And we wanted to tackle a different time in the career of our employees. So we have solidarity scheme for early career, people that are younger, less than 35 years old, and that are in AXA for 3 years. They can take a break for 1 to 4 weeks to go and support a non-profit or an NGO that they want to. It is up to them to propose their program. It is up to them to say, I would like to volunteer for that specific organization. So this is really the employees program. For mid-career, it's 1 to 6 months volunteering. for people that are more 35 to 60 years old and that are in AXA for more than 8 years. And then we have the end of career, which is before retirement, the opportunity to go to support and have an NGO or a non-profit benefiting from all the experience of that employee. And it's also a good transition for retirement because it helps our employees to move for their next phase and see if they are willing to continue to engage for the future and things like that. To us, it is very it is a very good program. We have more than 150 employees, which is not a lot, but you see that the conditions are very strict. It's a lot of engagement. Not everyone is willing to give more than several weeks or months to an organization. But it keeps the attractiveness. It's good for our employer brand, of course, and it's we feel it is very aligned with our purpose to act for human progress and protect what matters, and we want to push further, at least for France, those programs. So it's in a nutshell what we are pushing for skills-based volunteering. This is the most elaborate scheme that we have. We have other schemes more on mentoring, that you can mentor someone. We work with different non-profits that are helping us to meet with young. There are different type of association with different public, even though they all have in common to be youth and needs to be mentored, but there are different type of public and different lengths for the support that we provide with our employee. It can be 1 or 2 hours meeting to help doing a resume, for instance, but it can be also all year long, regular meetings, helping the young mentoree to raise to another level, not only for scholarship. They are usually, for those programs, they are good scholarship for that specific one, but to raise them and open them to culture, to museums, to exposition, things that they would not have access to in their family or in their usual living area. So that's very important for us. We deploy those programs with our human resources teams, of course, because they need to be aligned. We give our employees time, so it is important that we are all together, not only sustainability teams, but also the human resources one. To finish, I will just speak about our AXA Week for Good, which is our yearly momentum. It's not very skills-based, even though we try to bring people planting trees or supporting people in the street. There are many things that are done during that week. It can also be some solidarity race, etc. It's up to the entities to organize what they want. It's like our fair week. It is very important for us. It is a lot of our volunteers are volunteering during that week, and then it's also a first step to more volunteering. But it raises awareness for the program. It raises awareness for the causes, for our partners. So it is, for us, it is a very important week. And last year we gathered more than 15,000 employees during that week. And 39 entities were participating, which is very important for us because we really want all countries to join. We are a French-based company. We have a very specific program sometimes for France, but we really want to spread the word and be sure that all our employees all over the world can connect through AXA Hearts in Action programs. So I think I'm done with the key messages I wanted to deliver. I'm still there if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. What a terrific program. We have lots of questions, but let me ask you this one, Clementine. Do you have an example of maybe what one of the three moments, what one of the projects might be? And secondarily to that, do you have a quota for how many employees can participate in these programs? Since they're paid, they're pretty long term. Do you have a quota for how many people can participate?
Yes, nowadays, because it can change year on year, but nowadays we have 130 people involved in mid-career or end of career, most of them being end of career, and they are involved in non-profit that are either fighting exclusion, preventing risks, or even in environment. And very often they are working as PMO for them, because at AXA we have a very strong PMO skills. So they are doing project management internally. They help the organization setting process, setting governance, being more corporate, like for the good one, not for the bad one, but for the good one. We can have also administrative support. We have people that are very expert in logistics that can support. We also have people supporting for communication or IT. Of course, we are not an IT company, but we have a lot of IT skills internally, and those people also participate. So it's hard to focus really on someone, but among the 120, we have long term. We have all type of skills that are offered. Yeah, so it's mostly project management, administrative, logistic, communication, IT solutions, websites that we are providing. But it can't be thousands of employees, of course, because employees get paid for that, and there is a limit that the French government is letting us do for that.
Excellent, thank you. And a question for you, Janet, on your mentoring program. How do you train mentors, and how do you monitor the quality of what they're doing, the advice that they're giving?
That is a great question. It's through our partners. It's very specific to their programs. So they each have specific expectations and guidelines for mentors. Quality is a bit harder. There's some subjectivity based on how well matched a mentor and a mentee pair is. I can tell you that my first mentee with Road to Hire was a great on paper match, but personality-wise, it was tough. So most of our partner organizations provide mutual feedback, which can help everyone's development on both sides of the question, or on both sides of the equation. But there is, it's not a perfect science yet.
Excellent. We have another question. Let's see, for you, Clementine. Do you at AXA have a program to teach sustainability at schools and universities?
No, we don't. Well, on a case by case, we can find some places where we have done it, but what we have deployed is more an academy for professionals. So we have AXA Climate School, which is open to every companies that want to learn more about climate, biodiversity, and all implications for businesses. And that's accessible for the outside companies. And we took part of it to deploy what we call the AXA Climate Academy, which is close, but not exactly the same thing because it's internal. And we deployed a program about 2 hour length with 12 videos or 18 videos that we reached to all our employees. We almost reached 100%, which was our target initially. And it is very important for us that all our employees can be aware of what is at stake with climate, knowing climate science, what it means for AXA, and how they can individually act themselves in their job, in their personal life if they want, but at least in their working life. And so it was a lot of work to build that program, but we are very happy and the way it worked. And my colleague tell me that we have something also for students. AXA Hong Kong. Okay, so in Hong Kong, we shared our AXA Climate Academy with the universities. So that's a very interesting way to keep it forward and beyond our employees. Hopefully we will have more.
Excellent, excellent. And a question for either of you from the audience. How are you differentiating between skills-based and pro bono? The classic question. We found in our research that sometimes it's interchangeable, but do either of you have a view on that?
I can take a quick stab at that. So the way that I think about it is, when I think about Cognizant, 80% of our organization is client-facing. It means that they're billable hours. And so, I'm corporate staff, I'm not billable hours. When I think about pro bono work, I think about billable hours, right? So if I'm lending those consultants to those universities, that is something we would charge our clients for. If I have a request from a nonprofit organization to create an app, that is something that we would charge for. So for us to give those services free of charge, that's pro bono. When I think about skills-based, that is sort of a talent, an asset, and experience that you have that you are willing to lend, but there's not a specific fee or charge, right? Like for my mentoring for a student, I don't charge someone to mentor and then provide it free for someone else.
Great.
We don't do really pro bono at AXA. We do more skills-based volunteering, but it's true that it's a long word. Not everyone is familiar with it, so very much sometimes it may be a shortcut to say pro bono internationally. And we have, the Pro Bono Lab also that is also promoting the confusion maybe a little bit between both.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that what we do on our side is much more skills-based volunteering than pro bono. I agree with Janet with the difference.
Great. And one last question: are either of you considering or planning cross-border volunteer programs? Do your employees go to another country to do their volunteering?
Technically, I think they could. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do it. This year, AXA is sponsoring the Liverpool Football Club. And this year we had an event at Liverpool in their training center. And we bring mentoree with their mentors from different entities in Europe. So it was kind of cross-border event. Otherwise, we have what we call our global challenge every year during the AXA Week for Good, but it's less skills-based volunteering. Let's be honest, it's more how we can get together and do something for good, but it's not skills-based.
Great. Janet, anything at Cognizant?
Well, considering that we have 370,000 associates around the world, crossing borders isn't really necessary because we're already there. I have counterparts who cover India, Central Europe, UK, Asia Pacific, and so we don't really need to cross borders. We're all over the place. So if you're thinking about us going, sending teams and doing projects in Africa, that's really not in scope for us. I think those programs and those organizations that do that, I love it and I'm jealous, but I don't see that that's in the business future.
Great. Great, great. Well, thank you both for really terrific presentations full of good information and advice. And thank you to our audience for great questions. If you're interested in our report, you can download it by chapter or read it in its entirety. Here is the link, or you can see it also on our website. Now for GCVC members, we're going to sign off here and go to a separate discussion. Again, if you need that link, send me an email, Lorrie, Lorrie @iave.org. And we will continue a discussion with our speakers. And thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.